Hello, everyone. Bob Main from Handgun World, another YouTube episode, another audio episode. I'm a practical guy. This is a practical show. Episode 646 for some of you that have been listening to me all these years, like my guest, and even if you are new listeners, thank you. I want to do a quick shout out to my international listeners. I've been getting some emails that have been coming to me from all over the world. I don't know why people outside of USA, but I suppose they tune in to learn something as well. So I'm flattered by that. And Dave Sohm, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be back.
The last interview that we did a couple of weeks ago, I got some real good reviews on it. So I'm happy to have you back. We talked a little bit last time about defining your concealed carry mission. And any of you viewers that have never listened, go over to my website, Handgun World, or you can find me on Apple Podcasts, or you can find this pretty much anywhere that you get your podcasts. So we're going to do a little part two on that. But before we get to that, you said you wanted to give a range report on your
Yes.
Smith and Wesson M&P range session.
Yeah. So here's my M&P. It's not a shield. It's a little bigger. It's the compact size, Glock 19 size. I can get all my uh,
Get your entire hand on that thing.
yeah. So you can get your pinky in there, get that involved.
I
Um,
forgot to ask, is that the 2.0 or the original version?
this is the 2.0 compact. So it's like a Glock 19, 15 round magazine, 4-inch barrel, double stack.
All
But
right.
so
Yeah. Very popular pistol, very good pistol. And
right, so
so you
yeah,
you recently took it to the range. You got a good report for us.
yeah. So it's been a little while since I've got to shoot it. I spend a lot of time doing dry fire, um, but if we're going to be shooting these things, we need to be able to hit our target. And on this one, I don't know if you can see. We've
Very
got
well. We can see that very well.
Okay, so we've got Trijicon HD XR, which is skinny front sight post. It's a very good sighting system. You can, as you're coming up, you can get that front sight. But at longer ranges, you have to work on it. And as you will learn as you shoot, different bullet weights, different sights, they all kind of interact differently. And so if you're going to be accurate, you need to know. So a couple of weeks ago, I was able to go to the range. It was just over a lunch break, so it wasn't a really long session. But I thought, I should get some shooting done. And I went, and they have it's a public range run by the state. They have a 50-foot pistol range. So
50
50
feet.
feet,
Okay.
yeah. So you figure it's about 15 yards. That's about 45 feet. So
Yeah. It's more
I'm
like about 16 to 17, but yeah,
yeah, but
yeah, give or take a little bit. Who cares, right? Who's counting?
pretty close. Yeah, it's close enough. It's close enough. So I went and I had some leftover hollow point ammo, which is you should change it out periodically. So I had a big bag of just old ammo that just needed to shoot it. And then I shot about 5 rounds of my new current ammo, which is Federal HST 124 grain plus P ammo.
There we go. I got the same.
Yeah. So
My favorite carry ammo.
yeah, it's a nice medium weight. It's got plus P, so it's got some oomph behind it, and I've heard people say good things about it. So I went and I I was using a B8 target.
Okay.
Some knowledgeable people have said that they like these because the targeting area, it's a 5-inch circle. It's about, the right size here and like the right size here. So if you're doing it for defensive purposes, this is a good targeting.
That's a good illustration there, Dave. That's good.
Yeah. So I was shooting at one of those and I realized that the sights on these Trigicon sights, they are different than the sights that are on my SIG, which I've had for a very, very long time. The sights on my SIG, let's see if you imagine, here's the front sight, and here's
Hmm.
like the dot. The bullet wants to hit kind of right in down in the middle, but the sights on the Trigicon on my M&P, they like to shoot high. So you have to take it and line up the front sight post with the back, and then put the top of the sight post right about here to get it in here at 15
So
yards.
some people call that about a 6 o'clock hold.
Yeah, I would say that's a 6 o'clock hold with plus P ammo. When I switched to some ammo that was I got some bulk range ammo, and when I switched to that, all of a sudden the rounds were hitting exactly like right in line with the top of the front sight. So then instead of having the top of the front sight down here, I had to move it up to here in
So
order to get
why
the
do you
round to
think
hit.
that is? Why do you think that you're shooting high with the plus P Federal 124 grain?
Um, I'm not I'm not 100% sure, but I did notice it was pretty consistent as long as I was pulling the trigger correctly, which that's another issue. But it could be if it's throwing the bullet faster, maybe it has a sharper recoil, and so maybe the barrel is slightly higher when it shoots with the plus P. I'm not sure.
Well, the bullets probably left the barrel by the time you feel the recoil.
Yeah,
I would
that's
say that's probably, unless somebody wants to correct me on that. But what I like to hear you say is that you tested it both ways. Some people don't test both types of
yeah,
ammo.
yeah. So like let's say I was able to find some plus P ammo, but then when it's time to get new ammo, all I can find is like standard pressure ammo. I would need to take that new ammo to the range and make sure I know where it's hitting if I want to be accurate.
Very
So,
good point. Yeah, it's
so
so so here's something I want to continue this, but here's something I want to throw out. When ammo was scarce 2 3 years ago, I was buying up just whatever I could find.
right.
And that's typical of a lot of people unless you stock a lot of ammo. You have to
Mhm.
buy what you can find. So I went to the range on Saturday as well, and I decided that I settle on the same ammo you do. Federal HST 124 grain. I use standard pressure instead
Mhm.
of plus P. But here's what I'm starting to do. I used a couple different types of ammo. I used Hornady, and the other one was Spear. I didn't like the where the bullets were going. I liked where they were going with Federal. So what I plan to do is I'm switching everything out to Federal HST.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot and practice with all the other concealed carry ammo that I have until I get down to the amount I want and maybe buy some more of the Federal. What do you think?
I mean it's a good idea. Get something that works well. And if you're serious about this, if you're going to be reaching out to distances beyond 7 yards, then you're going to need to know those details of where the ammo hits. And um, I've met trainers who were police officers, and they have absolute faith in the ability of federal HST 124 grain to like work.
And what
So
distance were you shooting at?
I decided for this shooting range session, I decided to just leave it all at 50. Just do it hard, make it hard. see how see
50 feet.
make a challenge for myself. Um, and so yeah, it was I was finding
So
I
everything was done at 50 feet, all of your
yeah
shots?
yeah, and so
Okay.
I would put the sights about here with the
Lift
plus
that up a
P
little
ammo.
bit.
Oh
Lift it
yeah
up
yeah yeah,
just a
sorry.
little. There you go. You'd put the sights
So
where?
I'll just right about on this line here, or as close as I could see, with the naked eye at 50 feet. But I was putting the top of the sight here, and then as long as I had a good trigger press, I was getting pretty close in here.
And
Now,
with range practice ammo, where was it hitting?
it was I would have to raise the front sight up
Yeah.
to about here, and then the range practice ammo, which was some older standard pressure, and then I had some American Eagle. I got a 1,000 round case that I plan to make use of. So, and that's that standard pressure. and I would have to bring the front sight up to about here to be able to hit
So it
in.
sounds
Yeah,
like your standard pressure was hitting pretty close to point of aim, point of impact.
yeah,
Your range ammo,
yeah,
but your carry ammo, the Federal HST, was shooting high.
yeah. So if I was going to be practice aiming, I would want to have the dot of the front sight down a little bit low to hit above, or and I haven't tested it at like 5 yards. At five
Yeah,
yards, the distance probably closes. You just
it
put the dot
probably
in the middle,
closes. Yeah.
you're good there.
Well,
But
this is good stuff. This is the way I think that people should practice with a gun they carry.
yeah, and this was something I could do at the range. So I'm not allowed to draw at this range because it's state operated. So they don't want people working from the holster. They don't want you firing more than one round a second because just anybody can be there, and they don't want people going
Yeah,
crazy, which I get. So I just had a timer on my phone, just an app, and I set it to
yeah.
like 2 seconds, and I would start in kind of the number three position, practice, getting the gun out, getting the sights on target, and trying to break that shot in under 2 seconds. And I found that that's probably a little too fast. I could probably slow down a little bit. Um, and then I I would find that I would get on target and then be anticipating the shot, so I'd flinch, and instead of taking out the slack and then doing a nice easy click, I was just wham all the way through.
But that's okay
And
though.
that's
That's
okay, but
okay.
at 50 feet, it amplifies any mistakes you make. So
But a lot of good shooters, I hear them say that's the way you should shoot. I hear a
right.
lot of really high level shooters that say they don't shoot to reset, as I call it.
Mhm.
They're completely off the trigger and back on it again
Right.
in a fraction of a second, or they at least let the trigger all the way out. You know,
Yeah.
instead of shooting to reset. To make sure, yeah. So what they'll do is, after they fire, a lot of them are like this, off and back
Yeah.
on. That's what I hear. That's not me. For some reason, maybe I'm doing it the wrong way, but I'll fire and then I will just go right back to reset like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for it was taught like that for a long time. So, and me too. I think it's just habit, especially when I'm only doing one shot and I'm trying to like have good follow through. I catch myself trapping the trigger. But
Yeah,
if I had to remind myself of what we learned, and because you've taken a Mag 42, the way that Masad Ayub teaches, because obviously when you pull the trigger and the rounds are hitting low and left, it's because you are pulling the gun down. You're squeezing on the grip right as you're about to pull the trigger. So Masad's Mass's solution is just squeeze it as hard as you can as your grip. Like it calls it the vice grip, just or crush grip. So I had to remind myself, all right, crush the grip, clamp it in there hard, and then that minimizes that kind of flinch kind of grabbing motion. And so a lot of the stuff I've done in dry fire, it helps you remind you what it's supposed to feel like when you do it properly. But then when you get to the range, you get recoil, and you have to remember how to manage recoil and not to flinch and clamp down on it and all that stuff. So it's always a good learning experience to
yeah.
yeah, you know,
Recoil messes things up, doesn't it, Dave?
yeah, it surprises you a little bit. Like yeah, and it shouldn't, but it does. And the only conclusion I have every time I go to the range is, man, I need to get out here more and practice more.
That's
I just
what my conclusion was on Saturday. Um, I want to touch a little bit more on something we've just been talking about. I hear a lot of people say dry fire practice, dry fire practice. You got to dry fire practice all the time. That's true. You do have to dry fire practice, but I don't believe that anything beats live fire
oh no, yeah,
because live fire introduces the recoil, it introduces the noise, it introduces the shock, And experienced shooters that I think have been shooting a long time may not be as intimidated. In fact, probably are not as intimidated by the recoil and the noise. But especially new shooters, new shooters can be at home and they can do this all they want and dry fire, but that gun's not moving much when you're doing this. All
Right.
right. But you get to the range and all of a sudden the recoil, especially when you put your plus P in there, boy, now you got a lot of recoil going on, don't you?
Yeah, I figure with dry fire you can work probably 80 to 90% of the fundamentals of handling the gun safely. Practice getting it out of the holster, keep your finger off the trigger until you're aimed, and then the sights, touch, take the slack out, or sights, grip, and then press. You can work a
Correct.
lot on that in dry fire so that so you kind of know what you're supposed to be doing, and then it's fewer things to think about when the gun starts actually going off and it's loud and you have to
And I
fight up.
100% agree with that. And I'm not knocking dry fire. I do it. I practice not only pressing the trigger, but drawing. I even practice different scenarios. I practice movement and things like that when I'm
Yeah,
doing dry fire. If there's a new technique I learned, I'll do that in dry fire. But boy, there's nothing beats getting out to the range and pressing the trigger 200 times with live rounds, is there?
for sure. Yeah, nothing beats it, and especially the more often you can go, I think the more that learning curve is smaller, and you can actually get in and do some good work.
What else about your M&P 2.0 compact did you learn at the range?
Well, um, a couple of times I I might be gripping it where my thumb is down, because a couple of times when the magazine went empty, it went right back and I got a click. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm going to have to probably incorporate some malfunction drills in, maybe do a few of those, remind myself of those. Um, but yeah, that was pretty interesting. I practiced, I did some with both hands, and then I did some of the single hand techniques that we learned from Mag 40 from Masada, and of course I did all those out at 50 feet, just to make it hard. And
So, do you mean that you had a few times where the slide did not lock back after the first round? I mean,
after
the last round, the last
yeah,
round.
the final round, yeah. So again, I don't know if it is. I don't know if it's the springs in the magazine are weak, maybe need to be replaced.
Possibly.
I don't know, because on the 2.0.
I don't know.
Oh, here
Sounds
we
to me
go.
like your thumb might have been riding the slide
I think,
release.
yeah, I think I probably do, because
Yeah, you might have been
the
pressing that with your weak hand, right? Show me that grip again.
yeah. So here's
Yeah,
this, and then it's right there. So
you may have been hitting.
it's probably just
Yeah,
holding it down.
yeah.
Uh,
And this is another reason to get to know what gun you're going to carry because now, okay, it didn't lock back on you after the last round a couple of times, but really now, how often do you think we're going to get to the last round in our gun?
I mean, hopefully not a lot, right?
Hopefully never. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but it's something to consider, and
yeah. Unless you have a
and
revolver, unless you carry a J frame.
yeah, yeah, those are a whole different ball game.
But then you don't
So
have to worry about a slide. So who cares?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so I did that. I ended up probably total. I probably got about half of my targeting area is just the black, the bullseye, and probably in total of all the rounds I fired, I probably had about half of them get into the black. A lot of them were wide, but I was trying to reacquaint myself with the single-handed techniques. Um, after a couple of magazines, with my phone set at 2 seconds, I set the timer so it would give me a 3 second par time. So it would go beep and then beep again at 3 seconds. And I like forced myself to slow down and take longer to try and get my shot, so that I wasn't trying to rush myself. Because that's another thing. You get to the range, it's exciting. There's guns going off. You want to just like rush and get it on there. And that's when I found when I was trying to push it too quickly, that's when my marksmanship suffered. And so I
That
found that,
usually happens.
yeah, so it's not that, it's good or bad. That's just kind of where I'm at right now, where I needed to slow down a little bit and concentrate on it. And I can work on my getting more accuracy in subsequent range trips, and then work on speed. And I'll probably before too long, I'll find a range where I can just set up my own targets and do drawing and multiple shots and things like that. But for right now, it was a pretty productive range trip for a lunch break. And, I
Good.
learned
That's
some
a
things.
great lunch break. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. Learned some
That's
things
pretty
and got
cool.
some stuff to practice. So,
Dave, a couple things before we stop the video. What do you like? What couple things do you like most about your M&P 2.0?
what I like about it the most, well, so it's very ergonomic. It's got the 1911 kind of angle for the grip frame. So it
18
comes
degrees,
right,
I believe.
yeah, something, yeah, like that. So it comes right up. It is compared to my SIG, it's very thin and slim. Um, so it just kind of, it hard to describe. Like I don't have to think too hard about it in my hands. It's just there, and all I have to think about is the front sight, and then the trigger where it is. It's kind of single action because the trigger, all it does is it releases the striker. On a Glock, it catches the striker, pulls it back slightly, and releases. On the M&P, it just lets it go. So it's very much like a single action. So I like that it's thin. I like, especially with these sights, they're very high visibility. So you pick
They
them
are.
up as you come up,
Those are good
and it's,
sights.
yeah. So it's just kind of, I don't know. I want to say it's like you don't have to think too hard about how you hold it, how you're aiming it. It's just gun out, orange dot on bad thing, pull the trigger.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We all have things that we probably don't like about some of the guns we have. Is there anything
Yeah.
you don't like about that one?
Um, so yeah, it's minor, but the undercut of the trigger, if
Yeah.
you look, I mean, it's kind of rounded, but it's pretty flat. So sometimes the knuckle kind of hits that corner there. On
Yeah.
my SIG 229, it's actually beveled like this, and
Yeah.
so it's smoother. It's more comfortable.
So you have Glock trigger on an M&P. I mean Glock knuckle on an M&P.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
Uh,
undercut a little bit, but it still has a definite corner on the edge of the frame.
Some people call that Glock knuckle, where your knuckles all
Yeah,
kind of beat up and sore, and you got the same thing on an Smith and Wesson M&P.
yeah. You get it a little bit. It's not bad
Yeah,
though.
it's not too bad. Yeah, this this shadow systems that I like. I don't know if you can see the undercut of that. Let me get it back over towards the camera. See that right there? See
Oh yeah,
that big undercut? So my finger really gets high up in there, and there's no Glock knuckle with these.
yeah.
But
Well, that's
comparing
good.
that to my 365, that one has not quite as deep, so I get a little bit more Glock
Hmm.
knuckle, but not as bad on that one. Um, the but this is the Wilson Combat grip module, which has a much better undercut,
Yeah,
and I don't have my standard module here with me, but it's got much better undercut, I believe, than the standard SIG grip module.
more finger shaped.
More finger shaped, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, good.
yeah.
That's a good range report at 50 feet. Yeah, I like the fact that you're practicing it at 50 feet. So many people bring that target right up to 5 yards, and they're going
Mhm.
boom, 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 boom. Oh, look at my nice little group I got at 5 yards. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. But I'd like to see people challenge yourself and get that thing out to 50 feet, get that out to between 15 and 20 yards.
yeah. I like there's a drill that I think is probably like a baseline for most concealed carriers. at varying different levels of skill. But it's called, I mean, it's really simple. The 5x5 drill. You put a timer for 5 seconds. This is a 5-inch circle. So like from here to here is 5 inches. You fire 5 shots, and you want all of them to get inside the circle,
Yeah,
and you
that's
put
good.
it at 5 yards. So if you can get 5 shots inside this circle at 5 yards in 5 seconds, I think that's a good starting point. Like that's a
That's
good
great.
minimum.
That's a good drill. The five. You talked about that the last time we interviewed the 5x5 drill.
Yeah, I
Yeah, you
think
talked
so. I think
about that.
if most people can get to that, that's a good starting place, and then from there you can push it back and really see what you can do.
Good. I want to conclude the video. We're going to keep on talking more because we're going to spend some more time talking about defining our mission.
Mhm.
We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So, for those of you watching on YouTube, thank you. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. If you want to see more good interviews like this, support me on Patreon. There'll be a link below that on the video. You can get email updates if you want. You can head on over to handgunworld.com. You can listen over there, listen to the audio version. And just the opposite, for those of you who are listening on audio right now, if you want to see our guns and what Dave and I are talking about, hop on over to Handgun World on YouTube and check it out. So, for all my viewers, shoot straight, shoot safe, get that Bible out and read it every day. And let's continue on the audio podcasts.
Sure.